So, my dear brothers and sisters in Christ, today, the 14th of August, is a day before the celebration of the solemnity of the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary. And I thought it wise that on a day like this, we use the opportunity to remind ourselves about the teachings of the Church on the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary. And the Catechism of the Catholic Church, in paragraph 966, brings out this dogma, this teaching of the Church concerning the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary. This dogma was promulgated by Pope Pius XII on the 1st of November 1950. And it is important for us to also note that this proclamation was done in one of the basilicas in Rome, the Basilica of St. Paul's outside the world. And if you go to Rome, there are four major basilicas: the Basilica of St. Peter, the Lateran Basilica, and then we have the Basilica of St. Paul outside the walls, and of course the Basilica of Mary Major. What is the content of this dogma? What is the content of this teaching? We are told by the teachings of the Church that the Immaculate Virgin Mary, preserved from the stain of original sin, the ever Virgin Mother of God, after the end of her earthly life, was taken up to heaven, was assumed into heaven, body and soul. That is the dogma. And as far as this dogma is concerned, it is important to understand that the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary is a culmination of different activities and different ways in which our Blessed Mother had participated in the whole plan of our salvation history. That is why from the very beginning of the dogma, they are talking about the Immaculate Virgin. That's why they are talking about she being preserved from the stain of original sin. That's why they're talking about her ever virgin nature. That at the end of her earthly life, she was taken body and soul into heaven. It is interesting that the Church does not tell us whether Mary died or whether Mary did not die. They only say at the end of her earthly life, she was taken body and soul into heaven. And because of this teaching, theologians have come up, and there are some who have argued that the Blessed Virgin Mary died. There are some who have argued that she did not die. That is not the concern of the Church. The concern of the Church is what happened to her after her earthly life, that she was taken up to heaven, body and soul. Talking about the dogma of the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary, it is good to also look at what happened to Jesus in the ascension. We are told that when Jesus rose from the dead, he remained on earth, made a good number of appearances to his apostles and disciples, and that 40 days after, he ascended into heaven. Jesus ascended to heaven because he was God. Jesus ascended to heaven as the second person of the Blessed Trinity. Of course, the church always teaches us that wherever any of the divine persons are present, the others automatically are there. And that is why, according to the teachings of the church, the ascension is a Trinitarian event. The Son of God, second person of the Most Holy Trinity, taken up to heaven, body and soul, in his resurrection and eventual ascension. With the case of the Blessed Virgin Mary, she's not part of the Trinitarian family from the point of view that she's not one of the persons of the Blessed Trinity. She's not God. She's a human person. She's a creature like any of us. So the assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary was the accomplishment of the Trinity, which means that it was a Trinity that gave Mary that singular privilege to be taken up to heaven, body and soul. In our catechesis, the church teaches us, in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, paragraph 366, that when a human person is created, God immediately gives a soul to that human person. And the human person has the soul as the spiritual principle. And that is why when we talk about the human person is made up of body and soul. But they are not two natures. Like if we want to talk about Christ, body and soul give the human person one nature. And that one nature is his human nature. It is in the situation of Jesus Christ that we can talk about two natures, because Jesus had the divine nature and the human nature. The soul does not originate from the parents, but at the moment when conception is taking place, the source or the origin of the soul is from God, that is infused into the body in order to give life to that human body, and that is why that is how existence comes to be. Of course, we know that one of the realities that all of us we face is death. And the Catechism of the Catholic Church, in paragraph 997, talks about death as the separation of the soul from the body. When that soul that was infused into the body at the very beginning is separated from the body, the material or the corporeal body becomes something dead. It is buried, it gets rotten because of its nature. But the soul, which is spiritual, at the moment of death, is united or goes back to God from where it came from. And according to the teachings of the church, therefore, it is only during the last judgment. The Catechism of the Catholic Church talks to us about two judgments. We have the particular judgment, And we also have the last judgment. And paragraph 1021 to 1022 brings out what the particular judgment is all about. Paragraph 1038 to 1041 of the Catechism of the Catholic Church talks to us about the last judgment. During the last judgment, therefore, we are told that the soul will be reunited to the body. But which body? Not the corporeal body again, but to the glorious or the spiritual body. And you could see that with Jesus Christ. You remember, he had a corporeal body, he had his own soul as a human person, he had intelligence and all the rest. But when Jesus died and rose from the dead, we are told that he made a good number of appearances. I remember the incident of Thomas, but show me what happened to you. Jesus appeared in a semblance of the corporeal body, but in principle he had the spiritual body. And that is why the Catechism teaches us in paragraph 645 that Jesus had his glorious body at his resurrection, and that glorious body was what made him, he could enter into any house and get out when all the doors were locked. The apostles were surprised with all the ways and the movements he took after his resurrection. He could move along with the disciples on the road, and they are gossiping and talking about him, but not recognizing that he is the one, because the nature of the body that he had was different from what he had when he was with them. So, what is special is the fact that at the moment of Mary, as we have been told, that at the end of her earthly life, because of the role that she had played as far as salvation history is concerned, God decided that her corporeal body will not test corruption. And that is why immediately at the end of her earthly life, she had her glorious body united with her soul, and that is how we say the Blessed Virgin Mary went up to heaven, body and soul. It is not this corporeal body. It is a spiritual body. It is a glorious body. The same body that Jesus ascended with is the same body that the Blessed Virgin Mary also was assumed with. And as I mentioned, through a singular privilege of God, of the Trinity, giving her that opportunity. This is what we are preparing to celebrate tomorrow. That is the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary. When we come back on the second part of our teaching today, we'll use the opportunity now to ask, but why did God give Mary this favor? Why did he give her this special favor to allow her body to be transformed immediately to the glorious body, and she taken up to heaven, body and soul, and crowned Queen of Heaven? Jesus is the King of Heaven. Mary is the Queen of Heaven. So the dogma of the Assumption, therefore, is a conclusion of a series of events that shows the participation of the Blessed Virgin Mary as far as our salvation history is concerned. And when we come back, therefore, we are going to look into that, just to bring some few points to, I don't know whether I say justify, or to maybe let us understand better this teaching of the Church as far as the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary is concerned.